Okay.
Welcome to Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web exclusive production here on Channel 12. More on what happens before the tapings later. But right now, let's get a quick take on U.S. District Court Judge Marcia Krieger ruling on Thursday against the Colorado sheriffs who filed a lawsuit claiming that 2 of the gun control laws passed in 2013 were unconstitutional. Judge Krieger included in her ruling that the new laws were not an unreasonable burden on gun owners. The sheriffs have announced that they will appeal the decision. Lynn Bartles from the Denver Post, between this decision and everything that happened up in Aspen with the governor about a couple weeks ago, guns, which had a huge thing to do in 2013, are now back in the headlines. Do you think they'll stay there? Are they back for good?
Well, sadly for Democrats, this would have been viewed as such an amazing victory. See, we were right. But then you can say, then why did 2 weeks ago your own governor go up and say, well, we did this, we did that, we did that. Maybe we shouldn't have. Let me do this somersault with my foot in my mouth type thing. I mean, I thought the most interesting thing was I read the editorial in the Denver Post, I almost said the Rocky Mountain News, from Vince Carroll, and I mean, I thought it was interesting because Vince Carroll said, you know, you could have argued that these bills were unfair to law-abiding gun owners, but the argument always seemed a little stretched that they were unconstitutional, and Judge Krieger has pretty much said that as much, and that's a good thing. I know Dave has a different agreement on that, but to me, I thought that was a really interesting editorial. I just thought the victory was so tempered by Hickenlooper that to me it was just amazing.
David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School, and the attorney who represented the sheriffs in this case. Give us the inside scoop.
Well, obviously, we announced at a press conference yesterday afternoon that the sheriffs and the other plaintiffs, like the Colorado Farm Bureau, are going to appeal this. This was always going to, everybody knew it was going to go to the 10th Circuit. So the trial court was step one, and then the final decision will be the 10th Circuit or perhaps the U.S. Supreme Court. In our view, the judge's opinion wrongly takes the approach to gun issues that Justice Breyer adopted in his dissenting opinion in the Supreme Court case of Heller, rather than following the methodology used by Justice Scalia for the majority controlling opinion and similar 10th Circuit opinions as well. The opinion is less persuasive, I think, when you know the evidence that was at trial. So when you do anything that restricts people's rights, the Constitution requires that you have some benefit towards that, some increase in public safety. So background checks are, it's argued, going to help public safety. The bill they passed was, according to the fiscal notes, supposed to produce 200,000 additional background checks every year on private sales. But the actual mechanism they set up is so structurally flawed, so difficult to comply with, it's actually reduced background checks on private sales. So in our view, because you have to do a means-ends test, and the means actually takes you further away from the ends, that can't possibly be a price worth paying for restricting somebody's rights, and among other things, driving out of business the ability of groups like Outdoor Buddies, which helps disabled people go on hunting trips, to loan guns for short-term guided hunting expeditions by disabled people.
Eric Sonderman, political analyst. How do you feel about the timing of this? I mean, Lynn brings up a good point. If Governor Hickenlooper was not at that sheriff's meeting in Aspen, and this is the headline, he's directing an entirely different point. Now it's almost like he's back straddling both places and not enjoying the ride. What do you think?
Oh, you're right. Lynn is dead on right on that. It totally threw cold water on what would have been a major hurrah, high-five kind of day for Democrats, for gun control advocates, for everyone else. David is right in one sense, too, that this was always going to be the start, not the end point. However the decision had come down, it was the first word, but not necessarily the last word here. The last word will be the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, potentially the U.S. Supreme Court. In terms of the politics of it and the governor's race, it strikes me that there's peril in this, probably for both Hickenlooper and for Beaupre. For Hickenlooper, we've already touched on it, Lynn hit it, that he's now all over the map and you don't know where he is, and that every time the issue comes up, people are going to think of the video of his remarks at the Sheriff's Association. For Beaupre, there's also some peril here because his core constituency is obviously a conservative constituency, opposed to this ruling, opposed to the gun control laws, but yet a number of those laws, particularly the background checks and others, are substantially bordering on overwhelmingly popular in the state, and so he can't get too crosswise with them. So there's peril for both sides here, and we'll see how it plays out.
Susan Green, editor of ColoradoIndependent.com. What did you make of the decision and how it goes with Governor Hickenlooper?
I think Hickenlooper is so strong in this race, especially against Beaupre, that obviously he goofed up a couple weeks ago, which is interesting because he doesn't normally do that. So I don't think you're going to hear a lot more about that big mistake he made, much more in the campaign season. Aside from him, if you just look at all the other Democrats in the state who supported that bill, who worked to get it passed, those bills, I think it really helps them, and it inoculates them from this kind of Dudley Brown factor in a really big way. There's another thing is, if this goes to the 10th Circuit and it goes to the Supreme Court, that's way past November, and we're going to be hearing about that in years to come, not months to come.
We'll definitely be talking for quite a while. That's all the time for Colorado Inside Out postgame this week. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.